5 in stolen base attempts, stolen bases, and also getting thrown out. So again, Cole Messina, stretch it, man. Stretch the arm. Here we go. It's going to be just like they are almost like Kentucky Junior when it comes to stealing bags or attempting to steal bags. That's the one thing they'll do. They'll bunt and they'll try to steal bases. But offensively, they have issues. They have a first-year head coach, kind of retooling and rebuilding. They were picked last to start the year, so it's not like this is a shock. But Missouri only has one guy with double-digit home runs. They are a baseball team offensively that scuffles. Their pitching is below average, but their offense, if you take all the numbers together in totality, it's the worst offense in the SEC. But they've been losing close games. Like I just said, 4 of their 7 losses in the last 3 SEC series have been one-run losses, even though they're 2-7 in those 9 games. So they'll hang around. I mean, they're grinding. They haven't just rolled over to end the season, but they're a team that loses games. So you have to go win 2 out of 3. You just have to. Because this is the last one where you go, yeah, you definitely win that series. Definitely. So that starts tonight here on the game, I believe. I'm trying to remember, 6:45 pregame. Let me look at my notes. It'd be a good idea to look down at the notes, Tara. 6:45 pregame, 7 o'clock first pitch from Como. Tomorrow, 3:45, our coverage starts, and then Sunday, 1:45 pregame with Derek and Stewart. Weather permitting, again, we'll see if there's any kind of weather craziness. Obviously, we'll let you know, and we'll adjust the schedule accordingly. Because sometimes, it's like, hey, we're going to have a doubleheader. Okay, I'm just going to start really soon. Yeah, we've changed it, and we're going to have a doubleheader. That's just the way college baseball is. You just got to move stuff around because the way the schedule's set up, you got to get games in. So we'll see. We'll see. Tonight, though, schedule 6:45, we get cooking with South Carolina at Missouri. And the Gamecocks, and Jay and Elijah did a really nice job of breaking this down yesterday. We'll piggyback a little bit in case you didn't hear some of this. D1 baseball with their NCAA tournament projections. Right now, South Carolina is 10th overall in the D1 baseball rankings. And they would host, and the teams projected to be part of the Columbia region would be Coastal, Georgia Tech, USC Upstate. Now, Coastal's top 25 in RPI. Georgia Tech's in the top 55. I think they're 53rd in Warren Nolan's RPI. And then USC Upstate, who South Carolina saw earlier this year. So, I mean, if you look at it, yeah, Coastal would be what you look at as your toughest test in that region. Baseball America also with their NCAA tournament projections. South Carolina, 12th Baseball America, and would be the 1 seed, obviously, hosting. Wake Forest would be 2. Wake Forest is good. They're top 15. They're not as good as they were last year, but they're good. They got a couple of dudes who can go in the top 10 in the Major League Baseball draft. So Wake Forest got game. They're just not as deep in quality as they were last year. Just not as good. College of Charleston sitting at 3, and then Samford 4. Charleston's like 53rd RPI, I believe it was, in Warren Nolan's projections. So that's what the projected field looks like. And it's not a bad setup if you look at those of either one of those brackets in hosting. I'm guessing the D1 baseball bracket a little bit easier because only South Carolina's in the Warren Nolan top 20 RPI. Coastal just outside of it. Georgia Tech, like I said, in the 50s, and you have USC Upstate. So if you handle your business at Missouri, and then you can just kind of hold your own to end the season with Tennessee and Georgia, let's say you go 3-3. You're probably going to hold where you're at in these projections in some way, shape, or form. So just, again, but you got to handle this weekend. You just do. You don't have to be run ruling anybody. You don't have to, it doesn't have to have fireworks going off. You don't have to, bash Missouri into oblivion, even though it would be nice. Just, you have more runs on your side of the scoreboard than the Tigers do. That's simple. Walk out at least 1 and 2 out of 3, if not pulling a sweep. You don't want to lose this series. It doesn't end the world, But this is a series you should win, and you need to win to keep your momentum going, not just for the season, but to get yourself in the best possible spot for the NCAA tournament. Momentum's a weird thing. Momentum in baseball, it's always been said by managers, momentum is the next day starting pitcher. Now, pitching has changed a bit over the years, but still, momentum is a fleeting thing in baseball. And a lot of times it is the next day starting pitcher. It's that simple. And the South Carolina, we'll get into how the pitching rotations are set up. It's pretty much business as usual now for South Carolina. You're starting Roman Kimball on Friday, Eli Jones Saturday, and then our favorite starting pitcher, TBA, on Sunday, which we kind of know how that's going, most likely with Dylan Eskew. So we'll get into all that stuff, kind of keep an eyeball on and getting you ready for this series at Mizzou as South Carolina travels a long way, really long way. And yes, all we hear about are kooky things that happen in every sport when you travel to Columbia, Missouri, because it's kind of a weird spot for the SEC anyway, right? And everything's just different from all the other stops for the most part, and this is kind of weird. Florida got swept. It was 2 one-run wins for Missouri in that series against Florida. One of those games, I believe, off the top of my head, went extra innings, so it was close. It was a close series. But Missouri won those one-run contests. They've been losing a lot of them, but they won a couple of them. So they play a ton of close games. But since that sweep of Florida, like we said, they've been 2-7 in the SEC. But again, Florida's not Florida this year like they were last year. They're just not. South Carolina is a better baseball team than Florida. But you still got to go handle your business. Especially because if you look at the numbers Missouri does, for a team this bad, they play more one-run games than you would think. So we'll kind of keep looking at all that, and we'll get some Mark Kingston post-game after the East Tennessee State game. So we got that coming up on the show. Also, intern Joe usually hangs out with Tyler. He's going to be with us in the 10 o'clock hour. Yap some Carolina sports with Joe. That is coming up here on the show. Up next, Demetrius Knight was great. He was on the Garnet Trust Hour yesterday with Elijah and Wes and Chris. And if you missed some of it, we're going to kind of through the show play you some different cuts from Demetrius. Like I said, very compelling stuff from the transfer portal linebacker, came in from Charlotte. So that's coming up. If you are going to, it doesn't matter if you're watching the baseball games or not this weekend, what you can do is you can go to 1075thegame.com. That little flippy thingy at the top of the website, they call it a media reel, whatever. Well, that flippy thingy, once you see that flippy thingy land on the Grand Slam giveaway from the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union, you click on it. You fill out the form and you hit submit. You're saying, why, Ter? You like money? Who doesn't like money? 1,100 reasons to fill out this thing. The pot has gotten to $1,100. It goes up $25 every game. There has not been a Gamecock player this year to hit a Grand Slam. So every game, if there's not a Grand Slam, pot goes up $25. Right now it's at $1,100. So all you got to do is take maybe, Ed Bird, 1 minute and 12 seconds of your life, fill this sucker out, and if there is a Grand Slam hit, the next weekday morning at 7:30, the early game will draw a winner. Could be you, but it can't be you if you don't fill out the form. Let's go to 1075thegame.com. We'll get back in here a little Demetrius Knight, the transfer portal linebacker, first year in Columbia. We'll hear how he's getting comfortable and getting himself, acclimated to Columbia and the Gamecock football program. We'll get that next. I gotta make sure I'm on the right show, Ed. It's one of those weeks. The Extra Point. Terry Ford filling in for Tyler here on the game. Extra point, Terry Ford hanging in for Tyler. He'll be back on Monday, we think. Coming back from a few days off. All right, so Demetrius Knight yesterday was on the Garnet Trust Hour. Transfer portal linebacker coming in from Charlotte, started his career at Georgia Tech. Very interesting dude if you didn't get a chance to listen yesterday. In high school, he played quarterback. If I remember the story yesterday, threw for 1,000 yards, ran for 1,000 yards his senior year. Also, during his high school career, he played running back and wide receiver as well. Played 4 years on the high school basketball team, played high school baseball. He's got a couple stories we're going to run through the show to play you. Threw down a dunk in a high school game and broke the rim. Also, last year for Charlotte, had a pick six in a game against Maryland. So he's got some good stories, and we're going to kind of sift them through the show. So first, one thing, though, we want to get to, cut 12, Ed Bird. Obviously, brand new to the team, and Wes and Chris and Elijah asked him, how you fitting in so far in Columbia? Cut 12, Ed.
Yeah, so when you come into new territory as a new guy in a transfer, usually it takes a minute for guys to warm up to you because not only do they know you're coming here to help the team, but they also know that you could potentially be coming there to take their spot.
Compete
with them, and that's what this program is about, is competing. That's a core value that Coach Beamer brings to the game and brings to the locker room every day, and it has helped us get better.
It is a weird thing, and we were kind of yipping about this a little bit yesterday on the halftime show, is, this guy's coming in through the portal, and, you're welcoming him, obviously, because he's now part of the brotherhood. He's part of the team. He is going to, you hope, help you win games, make the team better. But if you're a linebacker, he's also coming in to maybe take your job or take some of your snaps or some of your reps. So you kind of got this, okay, yeah, I'm bringing him in. We need him to help us get better, but, I don't want the guy taking my gig. So it's an interesting dynamic. But you just have to find a way, right, to be, selfishly competitive, but also, number one, what's best for the team. And really, it flat out comes down to this. He's coming in. Yeah, he might be here to take your job, so you got to get better so he doesn't take your job. It's that simple, really. Okay, this guy's coming in. I got to get better because I don't want him to slide ahead of me on the depth chart. And, Demetrius was productive last year at Charlotte. So it is, it's like anything, new guy shows up and, any new team, the office, whatever, you got that new guy smell on you. And there's a lot of people who are welcoming, and there's some people who give you that eyebrow look like, okay, what you got, dude? They brought you in here, all fancy. Show us what you got. So there's always those different dynamics when you're new. It just is. Here's Demetrius Knight talking about how he improved as a linebacker last year playing for Charlotte. I believe that would be cut 5. Ed Bird, go get him.
Taking preparation. That Coach Oz was great defensive coordinator. He came from not Eagles. Sorry, Coach, if you're listening. Came from the Ravens, and he showed us what that defense was like in the NFL. We kind of tried to run that there at Charlotte, and that took my game to a whole nother level. That in the next level, you have to be smart. They talk about having football IQ. And, of course, you can be athletic and as all get out, have all the talent in the world. But if you don't know what an offense is doing when they line up in a certain formation, and they have their bread and butter plays just like we do. And the guys saw that I was able to pick that out, the first few weeks of spring. But I believe my studying went to a whole nother level. Where you have the answers to the test, you play a lot better. So I took pride in the offseason knowing, okay, I know I can play. I want to take my IQ level to another level, and that helped me last season.
Interesting answer to that question of, what made you better last year at Charlotte. And we every now and then we bring this up, but it's something we should always talk more about is playing the game from the neck up. Yes, you got to be athletic. Absolutely. You got to be able to play the game at a certain skill level, right? Or you can have both. That'd be great. But all the athleticism in the world won't help you if technically you're not any good, or B, from the neck up, you can't play the game. You just can't. I've told the story a bunch of times. Talked to a former NFL linebacker coach who became a head coach and a defensive coordinator, and he said to me, you can't win with dumb guys. You just can't. You can't do it. Everybody, to the words of Bill Belichick, you do your job. You have a job. You have to know your job, and you have to know what the guys around you are doing as well, so everybody can do their job seamlessly. And if all 11 guys are doing their job, you have a better chance of being successful on either side of the ball. Film study, first guy, last guy, it's all real. It's not cliche stuff. It's real. You study, you get better because then you see things. Wow, I saw on film that, they're doing that. I remember my film study. When they do that, they typically do this. And you're in position to make a play. It just makes you better. Even if you're crazy athletic and crazy skilled, the film study makes you better. It just does. Michael Vick says, I remember seeing an interview with Michael Vick after his career was over, and he basically said, I wish I was with Andy Reid. Man, I wish I could have been with Andy Reid in Philadelphia my whole career. Michael Vick didn't study. He wasn't first guy, last guy. He was last guy, first guy. And Michael Vick was like, I don't need to study, dude. You see me on the field? I don't need to know what they're doing because they can't stop me anyway. I don't need to work on being a passer. I'm a playmaker, man. Michael Vick got with Andy Reid, started to learn the nuances of playing quarterback to go with that freakish athletic ability and that game-breaking running skill that he had. And Michael Vick had his best all-around season that 1 year when he took over the starting quarterback gig in Philadelphia playing for Andy Reid. Andy Reid would have probably killed to have that guy. I mean, Donovan McNabb has always been underrated. Donovan McNabb was a good quarterback. And Donovan McNabb could move, but he wasn't Michael Vick. And, man, Andy Reid probably would have drooled to have Michael Vick in Philadelphia. But just the point of film study. And just using Michael Vick as the example. Michael Vick even says, looking back, man, I wish I would have spent more time in the film room. And learning the little things about playing the position of quarterback, footwork, you throw the ball where your feet take you. Any quarterback coach will tell you, you throw with your feet as much as you throw with your arm. So all those little things Michael Vick didn't care about, he would have cared if he was with Andy Reid. And he realized that when he was in Philly with Reid. So going back to Demetrius Knight, film study is such a thing. Again, in Baltimore, Ray Lewis and Ed Reed were film study nerds. They'd all get together and study film. And they tell you there's so many plays they made on the field that were game-changing plays where they made that play because of film study. And hearing Demetrius Knight talk about it, that's thumbs up, man. Because you get it. You've now crossed over to where you really get it. It's not, oh, God, I got to watch film. It's like, no, I want to watch film because that's going to help me be a better player. I will have some more Demetrius Knight through the show as we sprinkle it in. He's got some great stories about his pick six, about breaking a rim on a dunk in high school. It was really good with Demetrius Knight on the Garnet Trust Hour with Elijah and Wes and Chris yesterday. All right, we will circle back in here. College football coach got a nice, big, large bag, as my kid would call it. We'll get to that next. It's the Extra Point. Terry Ford, Ed Bird's here. We're running this sucker till noon on the game. Oh, talking hardwood, talking hardball, wherever you want to go. They use, still use wood. Both sports, some way, shape, or form. Sponsored by Georgia Pacific here on the Extra Point with Terry Ford and our buddy Ed Bird punching the buttons for us. I mean, look, this new lineup that South Carolina has rolled out, one of the keys, Austin Brindling at the top of the order. Again, it's a short sample, but still, Brindling, he's gotten on base, 500 on base percentage for the season, slugging over 400, but the important thing is getting on base. Brindling can also steal some bags. Hasn't really happened yet. He's 1 for 3. He has been picked off twice, which can't have that, obviously. But this lineup shift and Brindling kind of taking over the leadoff spot in the order and hopefully will hold that spot for the rest of the year kind of puts a little spark because, again, it's all about getting on base. Look, in a perfect world, it's fantastic to have the fastest guy on your team lead off. But it doesn't really matter if he can't get on. You can't steal first base, is the old saying, right? You want a guy that can get on base. And if he can steal bases, great. But if not, oh well. But you need guys who can get on base. Like Ricky Henderson, to go old school, was perfect. Ricky walked a ton. Ricky could steal a lot of bases. Ricky could hit you a home run. Ricky, in my lifetime, greatest leadoff hitter I ever saw. Because he could do all the boxes. But the number one box is get on base. That's your job. And that's what Brindling has done ever since he took over the leadoff spot. And like I said, hopefully this will continue through the rest of the season. But Austin Brindling, we'll put him in our Georgia Pacific category for today. All right, so in college football, there's a few things floating around. It is kind of the beginning of talking season. But this guy right here, let's go with cut 7, Ed Bird. This guy, already getting paid, now getting paid more. We swear. Hit it, Ed.
Another edition of spring ball in the books. What were your takeaways from today's G-Day game?
Healthy. Number one thing is healthy. Guys got to compete, put on a show for the fans. We still like to play football around here in the spring, so when we get a chance to play football, we want to play football. Proud of the guys for competing.
And we like to watch football, so we appreciate it. You said at halftime you saw more emotion and intensity from your defense in the first half than you had seen all spring, and that includes a lot of young guys. What impressed you on that side of the ball?
Well, they tackled better today, batted a lot of balls, which is huge in football. Offenses have a huge advantage right now. You got to knock balls down when you get a chance. I thought we did a good job of that. I thought the offense came back out in the second half, and Carson had some good drives there.
You mentioned Carson Beck. How would you evaluate your quarterback play today?
Well, I'd look at it from a whole spring perspective, and he's had an awesome spring. He's had a really good spring. I think defense did affect the quarterback a little more. They had a little more pressure in the pocket, but he handled that well.
We ended in a tie, but was there a reward on the line today?
There's always a reward on the line, so we have to share the reward now.
Everybody's getting it. And a win's a reward.
That's right. A healthy is a reward.
And not. Thanks for the time today, Coach.
You go Dogs.
Yeah, Kirby Smart has just received a new 10-year, $130 million deal. It was approved by the university on Thursday at its annual athletic board of directors meeting. Deal obviously makes Smart the highest paid college football coach in America, first $13 million coach. And, of course, right now, there are a lot of coaches and their agents going, thanks, Kirby. Smart was only going to make $10.75 million under his old deal. And the money, yes, we were being a little sarcastic there. The money is guaranteed for at least the first half of the contract. So 5 years at $75 million, so $75 million guaranteed, according to this ESPN post. Smart also can pick up about $1.5 million in bonuses. Of course, Nick Saban was the highest paid coach in college football until he retired. Dabo was number one there for a little bit at $11.5 million. Others in this range, Lincoln Riley's around $11 million as well. Kalen DeBoer is in the top 5 now, since he took the gig at Bama. Steve Sarkisian's over $10 million. Mike Norvell is over. He's about $10.5. I mean, again, Norvell won the ACC last year. Should have been the college football playoff. Has had a really nice 2-year run at Florida State. And again, this isn't about who deserves more, because we all know that, like Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly has been to the college football playoff. You know, he's played for a national championship at Notre Dame, won 10 games at LSU last year, played for the SEC championship the year before in his first season in Baton Rouge. If I'm picking which coach I want him to, Brian Kelly's resume is better than Mike Norvell's. Norvell makes a little bit more money than Kelly. But that's just not the way this works. Like, should Ryan Day be paid more than, Brian Kelly? No. I don't think so. I think Ryan Day, no one got, we always talk about the cupboard's bare. No one got a better kitchen cupboard than Ryan Day. Urban Meyer went shopping at Publix and filled the cupboards before he left Columbus. Ryan Day was handed a cushy gig and was, Ryan, don't bleep it up. And look, to Ryan Day's defense, his one-loss record is phenomenal. He's been to the college football playoff multiple times. Had Georgia on the ropes 2 years ago. And you could arguably say should have won that game. So Ryan Day has not bleeped it up, but Ryan Day's got one problem right now, two problems. One, he hasn't won a national championship. But his bigger problem is this. He's been losing that school up north 3 straight times. Now, Ryan Day has even more pressure on him because the head coach of that school up north, who was beating him, has taken his khakis and gone to the NFL. So Ryan Day should get that turned around this year. That's a thought in Columbus. That's my thought. Ryan Day, they should now go back to being able to beat Michigan. Because before this last 3 in a row that Harbaugh pulled, they were thumping Michigan. They absolutely were. And you look at the list of the highest paid guys. Again, we circle back Lincoln Riley. Look, Lincoln Riley's been in the college football playoff multiple times at Oklahoma, and again, almost got there at Southern Cal 2 years ago if they could have handled their business in the Pac-12 championship game. But Lincoln Riley's another guy. He was handed a really full cupboard at Oklahoma by Bob Stoops. So we'll see. I mean, everybody jumps up and down about how great Lincoln Riley is. And maybe Lincoln Riley is that great. We know he's a great offensive mind, and he's a great groomer of quarterbacks to go get a Heisman Trophy and be a very high pick in the NFL draft. But is Lincoln Riley a program builder? He hadn't done it. Southern Cal's given Lincoln Riley a lot of money to be a program builder. Something we have zero evidence that he can do. And there's a difference now. There's a difference in taking over a kitchen with full cupboards and going in there where the cupboards have nothing but dead bugs and ramen. And now you got to fill the cupboards yourself. Hell, some places you got to build the cupboards. So, again, Lincoln Riley's getting a lot of money. We'll see if he can be the program builder that we have no evidence he can be. The other guy on this in this list is Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, making $9 million. And, if Ole Miss wants to keep Lane Kiffin, they got to keep Lane Kiffin one of the highest paid coaches in college football. And Lane Kiffin's done a heck of a job in Oxford. He really has. That program is cooking. Double-digit wins last year before, should have won double-digit games till they went at the end of the year. Year before that, won double-digit games. I mean, Ole Miss is one of the better programs in the SEC. I'm going to repeat and say that again. Ole Miss is one of the better programs in the SEC under Lane Kiffin. And really, if you're Lane Kiffin, and I know his agent's going to put his name out there every year. I get it. I understand the game. The agent's going to call, over to the AD at Ole Miss and say, hey, a lot of programs sniffing around our boy. Got to make him feel loved. I get the game. But I think Lane Kiffin's got it great at Ole Miss. They love him. If he continues to win close to this level, he can stay there until he keels over. And the last guy on this list of top 10, top 12 paid coaches, timing is everything in life. 2 words, Eli Drinkwitz. Last year, Missouri Pops, they win double-digit games. They go win a bowl game. And Mr. 6 and 6 now is one of the 15 highest paid coaches in America. So Kirby Smart, again, circling around to the reason we went down this road. Kirby Smart, new 10-year deal, $130 million, $13 million a year to coach the Bulldogs in Athens. All right, we'll pop back in as we roll the extra point. We'll spin back to little Demetrius Knight. Great story. Demetrius Knight broke a rim throwing down a dunk in high school. We're going to hear that story coming back. It's a really good story. That's next. It's the extra point. Terry Ford hanging in for Tyler Head. Ed Bird's here, too, on the game. Extra point. Terry Ford hanging out for Tyler today. He'll be back on Monday. Coming at the 10 o'clock hour, intern Joe, who typically hangs out with Tyler, will hang out with us, and we'll talk some Gamecocks baseball, some football, and also throw maybe a little bit of hoops as well. Intern Joe popping up 10:15, going to spend a couple segments with us talking some Gamecock stuff here on the game. All right, so Demetrius Knight in on the Garner Trust Hour yesterday with Elijah and Wes and Chris, and just was really good. Told some good, excellent stories. One, told a story about Demetrius broke a rim on a dunk in high school. And it's a really good story. And let's go cut 3, Ed Bird. Here's the story of Demetrius Knight breaking a rim on a dunk in high school.
It's a close game. There's a fast break. They're coming down. I get the ball from the point guard. I see nobody in front of me. I'm like, oh, yeah, this is the one. I'm going to back scratch this one. Shaq style. I jumped up there with a bunch of momentum and was already playing in my mind how I was going to post this everywhere the next day. And, I got up there on the rim and all my weight went down with me. And next thing you know, the rim was looking like this. And the ref's like, let's pause the game. We got to change the rim because it's bending. So, the away team parents were yelling at me thinking I did it on purpose. And I'm like,
sounds like you did.
I had no clue I was going to bend it. I thought it was a breakaway rim, that delayed us about 30 minutes. And it's a Tuesday night, so no homework got done when we got back. But, yeah, till this day, that rim is MIA.
And then Demetrius also was talking about how the principal of his high school got the rim. And Demetrius even, autographed it. And he thinks the rim is still in his principal's office, but he doesn't know for sure. He can't find the rim. But that's an excellent story. Had to stop the game, fix the rim. I like how the opposing team's fans thought he did it on purpose. Try to think, what's the advantage of doing that on purpose besides, wow, look at me, I just bent the rim. I mean, we've seen backboards get shattered, but rims getting bent. Because, either you got to try to get the rim back up right, or you got to get another rim. Very simple. Rim's bent. So we'll get some more Demetrius Knight on the, like I said, sprinkled in through the show as he spent an hour, the entire Garden Trust Hour, with Elijah, Wes, and Chris. And we've talked about this linebacker room. And it's just, no offense to anybody who played linebacker last year, but the depth and quality and athleticism of the room has taken a step up to another level. With Knight, Bengali Kamara coming in from Pitt, you got the 2 freshmen, Gregory and Johnson, to go with the holdovers in Debo and Bam Martin-Scott and Willis. Just a deep linebacker room, whether you're going 4-2-5 or 3-3-5. Either way, you're set up at linebacker. The depth has been a problem over the last couple of years. The 2 football seasons I've been here, depth at linebacker has been a thing. And Mo Kaba's coming back from injury. The Mo Kaba injury 2 years ago really hurt the depth. And Mo Kaba's injury last year didn't help depth either. This year, you've got depth at linebacker. And plus, you can keep them fresh during the game if you're rotating them in some way, shape, or form. So that's another thing. Guys got wore down. Played a lot of snaps. Debo and Stone Blanton, for the first couple months of the season, were playing a lot of snaps, especially Debo Williams. So you can keep guys fresher this year because you got more bodies who are able-bodied guys, for a lack of a better term. So we'll get some more Demetrius Knight in here as the show goes around. The next one we'll pop it up in the 10 o'clock hour, is his thoughts about playing at Williams-Brice. We'll get that in. And he had a pick 6 last year off of Talea Tungavailoa, the Maryland quarterback. And the story's pretty good for that. So we'll get those 2 cuts in next hour from Demetrius Knight. It was pretty good stuff. He talks about the spring game as well. His thoughts on Lenore Sellers. A lot of different things we're trying to get to today. Let you, if you missed any of the Demetrius Knight yesterday, we'll pick out some different stuff and throw it up to you. Also in college football, obviously, all this talk about what's going to happen with the future of the sport. saw this headline. This just gives you the idea of where this is at. We talked yesterday about what we have for the last few days about this landmark suit, Knight versus the NCAA. I believe it's in court in California. The NCAA, everything points to they're going to settle this sucker. Because if not, they're going to lose. Because that's what the NCAA does in court. They get whooped. So they'll lose, and they'll probably be on the hook for at least $4 billion, if not more. And if you haven't heard what this lawsuit is, basically, anyone who played collegiate athletics before NIL was a thing will get money. We'll get back money for playing college athletics. Yes, billions. According to a lot of folks, if the NCAA does settle this, they would be paying in the neighborhood of $2.7 billion to settle. Think about that. $2.7 billion just to settle, to stay out of court. More of the Extra Point coming up right here on the game.
Well, it's much improved. You can point to a lot of different reasons, and I won't go into all of them tonight because I think it's just all of them. And I think some of it's personnel, some of it is preparation, some of it is confidence. There's a lot of different things, but right now it's the kind of offense that we hope to have going into the year. So just want to see it continue.
Extra point. Terry Ford in for Tyler. There's Mark Kingston, head baseball coach of South Carolina. Of course, Gamecocks, things are looking good. You come off a nice midweek win over East Tennessee State. Win 2 out of 3 over the number 3 ranked team in the country, Kentucky, here at Founders. Offense has gotten you rolling after a lot of inconsistencies throughout the season. Since Mark went to the new lineup, this team's been scoring some runs. It just has. I mean, you've lengthened out, guys giving good at-bats. And, yeah, even if you look at some numbers like Gavin Costas, Talmadge LeCroy, not as good offensively as they were last year, but still these are guys can be productive. And when your lineup is now stretched out with Kennedy Jones and Ethan Petrie and Cole Messina and Blake Jackson, you're throwing in Parker Nolan to go with Costas and LeCroy. Austin Brindling has taken over the leadoff spot. Dalton Reeves has had a lot of run at DH. You're starting to see some consistency. So we're hoping, obviously, that continues against Missouri. Missouri's pitching staff is below average in a lot of numbers and metrics. If you sit here and you look at the Tigers in the pitching department, starting pitching-wise, I mean, Carter Rusted, he's got 11 starts, ERA of well over 5. You'll see Logan Lunsford in this series start 11 games this year. His ERA is over 7. He's the Friday night starter for Missouri, as a matter of fact. So, I mean, you're going to see some guys who have struggled. Saturday, it's an interesting guy. Javen Pimentel for Missouri. He's a transfer from Arizona. And numbers are solid this year. An ERA of 3.64. As a strikeout an inning. Like I said, Logan Lunsford goes Friday with his 7-run ERA, and then Pimentel goes on Saturday for Missouri. And his issue on and off in his career has been walks. He just walks guys. This year it's kind of gotten better. His walk total, 13 walks in 42 innings, but control at times has been his issue. This year, again, with 9 starts and 10 appearances, he's most likely, if you just sit here and look at numbers, their best starting pitcher. So he will go Saturday, and then like South Carolina, Missouri will use TBA to be their starter on Sunday. So we'll see how that shakes out. But yeah, Missouri, starting pitching-wise, an ERA, it's a little bit under 6, 5.85. It's in the bottom half of the SEC. So their pitching staff has its struggles. They've just struggled this year in general. Like we talked about earlier, their offense is the worst in the SEC. Their pitching staff, below average. A pitching staff that hopefully you can get something going on against. Because the offense, obviously, at South Carolina has really gotten going. If you flip and look at Missouri offensively, a couple guys will stick out. And that's really it. Like Drew Culberson, he hasn't, not Drew Culberson. I'm sorry. That's not the guy I was talking about. Trevor Austin might be their best all-around hitter. His OPS is over 900. He's the only guy on the team with double-digit homers, leading the way with 10. Leads the team in ribs. He has 30. He gets on base. He slugs. He's their best all-around hitter. But they only have one other guy in Jackson Beeman who has an OPS over 900. So offensively, there's struggles. But their pitching staff, even though it's not the worst in the SEC, it's in the bottom half. in most pitching categories. So, again, you hope that you can have a good weekend in Como. But Missouri's played a lot of close games. We talked about it in the opening riff of the show. Missouri has lost 7 of the last 9 SEC games. 4 of those 7 are by 1 run. So they're hanging in there. They just, we talk about, South Carolina not being able to get over the hump, right? That's has been kind of the theme this year. Playing just well enough to lose against really good teams. Missouri has been playing well enough to lose in a lot of these SEC games that they're getting beat. Like, they were picked to start the year last. And right now they're the second worst team in the league behind Auburn. So none of this is a shock, but they are playing a good amount of close games for a team this bad. They're just not winning them because they're rebuilding. Their depth of talent, not very good. But you got to go in there. Even if you win, you win 2 out of 3 and they're both 1-run games, who cares? Aggregate score, don't care. Don't care about aggregate score. Care about wins. You can win 2 1-run games and lose the third one by 10 runs, and you lose the aggregate score, but you won 2 out of 3, so aggregate score is whatever. That's the number you look at when you're losing, right? Well, aggregate score, we're right there with them. Well, you lost the series. So you just go in there and win at least 2 out of 3. If you could pull a sweep, great, but do not walk out of Columbia, Missouri, losing 2 out of 3. And then you got to play Georgia and Tennessee. But hopefully with this offense that is now kicked up to go along with, seems like the starting rotation on the weekend has settled in a bit. Roman Kimball is your opener. Saturday you get Eli Jones, who struggled, last week against Kentucky, and then Dylan Eskew, who was phenomenal against the Wildcats last Sunday. Feels like that's where you're going. And then Roman Kimball obviously will get the piggyback of long relief. But it'd be great if Roman Kimball got stretched out to where he could give you 4 or 5. That'd be great, man. But it feels like there's a consistency in the rotation. Guys know their roles in the bullpen for the most part. And offensively, you've tweaked the lineup to where you said, okay, defensively, just don't kick the ball all over the field. But we're going to go with a lineup that tilts toward offense. And hopefully defensively will be good enough to where it doesn't hurt us. And so far so good with South Carolina. And again, 6:45 tonight, weather permitting, chance of rain, over 50% chance of rain every day in Columbia, Missouri. 6:45 tonight pregame with Stewart and Derek. And hopefully we don't get any crazy rain stuff. We're doing double headers, triple headers, whatever this weekend. That starts tonight, though, in Columbia, Missouri, 6:45 pregame, 7 o'clock first pitch with South Carolina and Missouri. We went over the projections, the NCAA tournament projections for South Carolina. Gamecocks, this is one thing we have yipped about all year. That strength of schedule is one of the best in America. Warren Nolan has the Gamecocks' 4th toughest schedule in the country. South Carolina, quad 1 wins. They're 12-12 in these quad 1 games. And that's a ton of quad 1 games. That's 24 of them. Alabama's played 24 of them. They're 10-14. South Carolina, like I said, 12-12 in their amount of quad 1 games. A lot of quad 1 contests. We talk about Wake Forest, who's projected in one of the Columbia regions. I think it's D1. No, it's in Baseball America. Wake Forest has played 20 quad 1 games, 9-11 in their 20 quad 1 contest. The team that's been crushing it in the quad 1, the best, by the way, Clemson's 10-2. Kentucky is 14-4 in quad 1 games. A&M's 13-6. Those are the teams with the best quad 1 records. Most teams are, sitting around 500, maybe a game or 2 over, a game or 2 under, sitting smack at 500. And some teams haven't played that many. Like East Carolina, they're 4-1 in quad 1. They only played 5. Their strength of schedule, 51. But the SEC, ton of these teams, obviously their strength of schedules are really good. A&M's top 20, Kentucky's top 15, Arkansas's top 25 strength of schedule. Tennessee is top 40 in strength of schedule. Georgia's top 15. And then there's South Carolina sitting at 4 with the toughest schedule in the league. So, I mean, it helps you when they're projecting brackets and things of that nature. And South Carolina sitting at 30 and 14. That might be, I'm looking right now, just scanning real quick. 16 games over 500 is the worst mark in the top 10. But again, nobody's played a top 10 or top 5 strength of schedule difficulty like South Carolina in Warren Nolan's RPI top 10. There's a reason why Carolina's sitting in the 10 spot. Strength of schedule is really difficult. Played 24 quad 1 games, and they've held their own at 12 and 12. And I just want to point out some of these records in quad 1 games because some people will go, "Oh, you're only 12 and 12 in quad 1? Really? That's not great." Yeah, but most teams are sitting right around that 500 mark, except for the few we went over: A&M, Kentucky, Clemson. You know, Tyler and I have had this conversation on the halftime show. South Carolina, the eye test, you go, okay, they're pretty good. But, you know, they've lost this series and that series and this series and that series. So the eye test, you go, okay. But your eye test, you don't walk away going, that's an Omaha team right there, bub. But if you look at a lot of the metrics and the numbers, I mean, they're sitting in a pretty good spot as the postseason comes rolling around. And it feels like we're seeing, again, stability in the rotation, stability in the roles in the bullpen, and a lineup that right now is scoring some runs. So you're hoping that hump they've been trying to get over, they finally crawled over the hump. That's the hope as you're sitting here watching the season wind down. The craft beer card is back. Ed Bird has a bunch of these. He's got craft beer cans all over his car. All you have to do is go to 1075thegame.com. Look at sweet deals, click on that. Basically, 12 craft beer locations in the Midlands are part of the craft beer card. You get to spend $30 with the card. You get $30 for these 12 craft beer locations. That's $360. I know because it's written here on the sheet in front of me. But if you go to 1075thegame.com, click on sweet deals, this $360 card only costs you $79. It's that easy, that simple. Again, 1075thegame.com. Go there, click on sweet deals, snag yourself a craft beer card. All right, we'll get back. We've been giving you some Demetrius Knight stuff. We're going to continue that. But intern Joe, coming up next from Gamecock Central, we're going to talk to Joe about all Gamecock stuff, from baseball this weekend and the bigger picture of this team. Football, obviously, the spring is over. His thoughts after spring practice and the spring games, we go into talking season. Also, Gamecock men's basketball, are you going to track down a point guard? Because that's the one thing missing for Lamont's squad. All that with intern Joe. We're going to do a couple segments with him coming up next. It is the Extra Point. Terry Ford hanging for Tyler right here on the game. Extra point, Terry Ford hanging in for Tyler today. He'll be back on Monday as we kind of look forward to what's going on starting tonight, weather permitting. 6:45 in Columbia, Missouri. South Carolina taking on the Missouri Tigers. Let's get intern Joe in here from Gamecock Central. Usually hangs out with Tyler. You got a slum with me today, dude. Sorry.
Hey, Terry, I'm happy to join you, man. Be chopping it up with such a legend this week. So I'm excited to be here and ready to talk some Gamecock baseball with you.
Yeah, I'm not even a legend in my own family, but thank you very much, Joe. I appreciate that. Hey,
Anytime, Terry.
All right, so we look at this series. You know, Tyler and I have talked about this, and other hosts have talked about it on the station. You look at numbers and metrics, and South Carolina checks a lot of boxes. Fourth toughest schedule in the country, second toughest schedule in the SEC behind Florida. They are 12-12 in quad one games. They got 24 quad one games, which leads the country. Number 10 in the RPI. All these things sound good, but when you watch this team play, you're going, yeah, they're good. They're pretty good, but they don't wow me. Now, the eye test tells you something, but numbers tell you something else. Where are you at as this team is evolving, and hopefully they're finally getting over the hump and can make themselves a run?
Yeah, absolutely, Terry. I mean, I'm at the point where, like, this baseball team is really starting to put it together. This is the most consistent baseball that they've played as of late, or to this point in the season. They've got a long road trip ahead of them to the other Columbia up there in Missouri. And so, I mean, long road trips stink. Like, it's not fun for anybody. But I mean, this baseball team, like, it's going to be interesting to see how they play this weekend. I think this weekend we'll really see how the whole consistency thing plays out. But I mean, it's also baseball too. So, there's a good chance that, I mean, you can go out and you may not have your best weekend, and that happens. But I mean, I think right now, the way that this team is hitting, just the way that the lineup has been working with guys rotating in and out with injuries and everything, it's been giving a lot of guys a chance to make their mark. And, I think morale's high. This team, was doubted these last couple weeks, and rightfully so. But, I mean, they listened to all of it and have turned the tide around and have started, backing up their own word a little bit here.
Joe, have you ever been to Columbia, Missouri?
I have not, and it's unfortunate because my uncle's a graduate of the University of Missouri, but I heard there's not a whole lot going on over there.
Yeah, I've never been there either, and from what I hear from people who have been, I really don't want to go.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm thankful that I didn't have to make the trip up this weekend.
It's like, for what you hear, it's like, what do they have, like barbed wire fences to keep people in so they can't get out? I mean, it's weird. It's like nobody wants to go there.
I have heard about one good pizza place called Harpo's, but that was about it up there in the other Columbia. And I mean, it's a long ways away, man. It's a hike to get up there, and that's what I mentioned. I was talking about it on our show Foul Ball yesterday. Is like, I mean, especially with baseball players too, you got to make sure you're well rested on this trip if you want to continue to have success later in the year, because you have Georgia on the other side of this Missouri series.
Intern Joe hanging out with us from Gamecock Central. Extra point, Terry Ford, Ed Bird here on the game. All right, so it feels like 5 years ago, but Missouri did sweep Florida earlier in the year at Como. In the last 9 SEC games, they've lost 7 of those, but 4 of those 7 losses are one-run games. And 2 of the wins over Florida, I believe, were one-run wins. So basically, for a team this bad, and they're the second worst team in the SEC, Joe, they play a lot of close games, man. So this could be a grind this weekend, even if you do pull W's.
Yeah, it's certainly a team that you don't want to overlook, right? I mean, it's a very easy team to overlook in the grand scheme of things. But, I mean, they're battle-tested. As you mentioned, swept Florida earlier in the year, which, I mean, South Carolina had, their hands full with Florida, but, I mean, also swept them too. But so, I mean, I think, yeah, it's really a team that you don't want to overlook. You want to take them like Georgia or, Tennessee even. And granted, like, they aren't, that kind of level of opponent, but if you give them that and treat them like, like a team that can beat anybody, which they've proven to do, and that's the nature of the SEC too, but you just can't walk in there thinking, you're going to sweep and get the heck out of there early. Like, you cannot overlook any team in the SEC, and especially this Missouri team who's been so up and down this year. You don't really know what you're going to get.
Intern Joe hanging out with us from Gamecock Central as we talk some Gamecocks here on the Extra Point on the Game. That's the thing, too. Like, you go in, if you don't handle your business, and you would walk out of there losing 2 out of 3. You got 2 top 10 teams in RPI in Georgia and Tennessee facing you. So it'd be good to. I don't care if you win 1-0, 1-0, 1-0. Doesn't matter. Yeah. You got to walk out of Missouri winning 2 out of 3 because you got a bear you got to face after that.
Yeah. You need 2 out of 3, right? You can't lose this series, and if you sweep, even better. Certainly makes the long trek back to the other Columbia back home, a little bit better. But yeah, you need 2 out of 3, and then once you get home, you can get back, get rested, and start preparing for the Bear in Georgia and Charlie Condon.
It's funny how we talk about Missouri like it's another country.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, it's just so far away, right? And that's a long road trip. No matter if you're flying private, flying like whatever, and then you got to fly into St. Louis. You got to drive 2 hours. At St. Louis Airport is not the best thing to get in and out of. Speaking from personal experience, it's not a whole lot of fun. And then again, you got 2 hours to drive to Como. So not the easiest road trip in the SEC. And then obviously you've got Texas and Oklahoma now too. So at least those are, just flights, right? You can land right into Austin and so it'll be interesting to see. It's rest, like really prepare. And that's the biggest thing for these long road trips.
All right. Well, one other thing I want to look at real quick about baseball is the D1 baseball projections and the Baseball America projections both have South Carolina right now hosting. And if you look at some of the hosting situations, like D1 Baseball has South Carolina along with Coastal, Georgia Tech, and USC Upstate. South Carolina is the only team in the top 20 RPI in that grouping. Baseball America makes it a little tougher. Wake is the number 2 seed, College of Charleston, and then Samford, and Wake is a top 15 team in RPI. So basically, if you can hold your own here, Joe, and don't stub your toe or break your foot or fall down the stairs, you're going to be hosting, and hopefully you get a nice, friendly hosting hub.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, Terry, that's a perfect example, right? Like, you really just can't fall down the stairs, right? You need to just hold on, continue to play some semblance of the baseball that you are. And, the way that things have been trending with this lineup and the way that they've been hitting, I have no reason to believe that they're going to fall off, or fall off the face of a cliff, right? I think if it is going to, peter out, it's going to be a slow, steady thing. And I think, with my best guess, my best fortune telling, if you can, Terry, I think they should be in a good spot to host a super regional. But again, we'll just have to see. This team's been up and down this year, but right now I think they're playing their best baseball and, should be in a good position. But if you have Wake in that regional too, it's not fun. You got to keep it going into the postseason.
And the lineup tweak has worked so well. All of a sudden, wow, they're scoring runs. They're not leaving guys all over the bases or in scoring position. Just a couple of these tweaks with Brindling going to the top of the order, and then because of the injury to Tippett, you've moved some pieces around in the infield. But now, all of a sudden, the offense is cooking.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Gavin Costas playing third was kind of like a precautionary thing in the fall and in the spring. And then now, all of a sudden, he was comfortable, and, everyone was telling us, hey, this, he probably won't happen, but, his glove isn't as much as we like it. But he's found a home right there at third. Moving Petrie over to first is also good. And then, you have 3 outfielders who can really do it all. And I don't think, the story is completely written for Will Tippett. I think, there's a good shot that he can make it into the outfield rotation, or even, I don't know if they might move him back to short, but Tal Leekroy's glove has been, it's been unbelievable at short. And we knew how good it was at third. It's really good at short, and it's no knock on Lee Ellis. They plan on having him be the shortstop of the future, the true freshman. But yeah, I've been loving the lineup changes. I think it's really good when you have multiple outfielders that can hit. And right now when you're dealing with an injury with somebody as key as Tippett, it's nice to kind of tweak the infield around, and Costas is doing a great job at third.
All right, Joe, stretch, get a drink, go to the bathroom. You got about 4 minutes, and we'll do this again for another segment.
10-4, can't wait.
All right, intern Joe from Gamecock Central, go jump back in here. Talk some football. The spring is over. It's talking season, so let's yip about the Gamecocks and what's going on football-wise. And also, we're going to see a point guard for the men's basketball team because you need one. Everything else feels okay, but you got to fit. You got to replace Talon Cooper, who was phenomenal. We'll get to that with intern Joe, Gamecock Central. Coming up next, it is the Extra Point. Terry Ford, Ed Bird punching the buttons and steering the ship here on the game. Extra Point, Terry Ford, glad you'll be hanging out with us. Tyler will be back on Monday, whether you're in Columbia at 107.5 The Game, Florence 100.5 The Game, and Myrtle Beach 100.3 The Game. We thank you for hanging out with us. We're yipping with our buddy intern Joe from Gamecock Central. All right, Joe, so we've finished up the spring, obviously, in the spring game and spring practices, and now we're rolling into talking season. So as you look back on the spring, all right, number one thing that made you feel, if you're a Gamecock fan, made you feel the best, the number one thing you saw or heard from the spring where you go, oh, thank God?
There were a couple things from the spring game with it. I mean, it's hard to see, or hard to pick something out from a game like that because, I mean, Dowell Loggins told us, I mean, prior, he's like, this offense is going to be vanilla ice cream, and boy, was it. But there were still a lot of good things. I was really impressed with, the young freshman DBs. Torian Gray is continuing his run and just finding young studs. I mean, this room continues to get better. Tigray continues to be such a good coach. I was impressed with the quarterbacks. Obviously, Robbie Ashford didn't get to show as much because, we had an offensive line issue prior, and obviously with Marky Anderson is back locking up. You don't need him to go out there and re-injure himself or make that worse, prior or in the game. So there were a lot of good things. Again, I think there's still some questions at wide receiver, and again, I think those questions are just going to be left up to until we start to see, more of an offense or hear about, somebody breaking through. Obviously, you got a couple good commitments in the portal. So that's a good thing. More depth to the wide receiver room. You've got a bunch of studs in there already, but more depth cannot hurt. But yeah, there were a lot of good things. I was impressed with the offensive line. I mean, they're making steps. I mean, the Great Wall of Carolina, if you will, that recruiting class looks good. And then the defensive line too. I mean, I think, everyone's been talking about Dylan Stewart these last couple of weeks, and rightfully so. Sterling Lucas has been singing his praises, since they had him on campus, right? Like, so I think, Dylan Stewart really, 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 I mean, he's gonna be a freak, Terry. Like, he looks the part already. He's quick, fast, so everyone inside the building and rightfully so outside too, have a lot of faith in this kid and what he can bring to the defensive line room. And then, I mean, when you mix that in with a couple veteran transfers and a couple more big bodies on the defensive or on the interior on the defensive line, this defense has potential to be really scary next year. And I think, obviously through summer ball, you want to knock on wood here. Make it through, injury-free. But, if they can do that, I think this defense has the potential to be pretty good.
Intern Joe hanging out with us from Gamecock Central, talking some Gamecocks football here on the Extra Point on the game. The wide receiver room, you add in two more receivers through the portal. One, the kid Campbell from Nevada, 6'4". So you got a big body guy who you hope can, big catch radius, jump balls down the field, red zone target, things of that nature. It's interesting. Look, and you said you're right. Spring game, it was vanilla ice cream. It was the bad vanilla ice cream. It was like the store brand. Yeah. It was the generic, right? I mean, one throw over 20 yards, I think, in the entire game, and that's fine. We get it. But the wide receivers really didn't get an opportunity to pop or show what they can do. And so obviously people are like, oh, the wide receiver room, oh no. But adding two more guys with the, 5 transfer portal additions to wide receiver, I think, off the top of my head, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's 5.
Yeah. So they're going to shake this thing out. It's going to be interesting to see which direction it goes in. Which one of those guys are you the most interested in seeing moving forward out of the 5?
Obviously, the big kid from Nevada. I think that's the biggest one, right? Because you already have a massive human being in Nick Harbor in the room already. And can't forget about him, right? Because he's doing his thing with track, and he's continuing to progress. It's one thing, obviously, too, when guys are into sports, you look at are they progressing? Is it really helping them to be playing this extra sport? And Nick continues to just fly on the track, which is crazy. But I think that other, the big body guy, I think it's so helpful because you don't have to put, Nick Harbor in those deep ball, lob it up. And obviously you'll see some of that, but you don't have to, put him in a situation where he's necessarily going to get hurt again, necessarily. So, and you can just kind of let him be an all-around weapon. And obviously these guys, these transfer guys need to get in and compete. But I think, adding some size that wasn't named Nick Harbor to that room was a good thing. And again, I think the competition level is going to be really, really good. I mean, we know we've been hearing about Mazio Bennett, how he likes to compete. So a lot of young freshmen, young, hungry freshmen, and then you mix it in with these transfer portal guys who are just fighting for their spot in the SEC. I think it's going to be a really, really good mix. But, out of everybody, I mean, I think the size is obviously the most attractive, out of all those guys. But also Gage Larvadane from Miami of Ohio is kind of my sleeper in that room. Kid's got some wheels, and he led the MAC in receiving last year. So watch out for him. But, I think the size is a great addition. And
Joe, linebacker, to me, look, this is no offense to anyone who's played there like the last couple of years, but with depth, athleticism, potential, this linebacker room is the best I've seen since I've been here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. And then the guy that's leading it all, Debo Williams, is a madman. Like, unbelievable human off the field, but as soon as he gets into the building, man, he is locked in. And, don't get in Debo's way when you're in the facility. But if you need a guy like that, or you need a guy like that leading that linebacker room, and you have a bunch of young studs like Wendell Gregory, Brett Johnson in that room, and those guys are going to be studs. I wouldn't be surprised if we see either of those two guys early and often in this linebacker rotation. You also added Demetrius Knight too, so I'm really interested to see how this all shapes out. And then Debo Williams, he reminds me so much of JJ Enagbare, and so I think he's going to be a stud, and he's going to be a high draft pick. I was shocked that he didn't go to the NFL this season because again he had some scouts talking, but he's going to be a steal and make whoever happy come this time next year.
And finally, you touched on it for a second, but we'll just go back. The concern, if you talk to Gamecock fans, we've done Twitter polls at 107.5 The Game on Twitter X. Offensive line still scares the bejesus out of everyone. But we were trying to say, look, the spring game, you split up the offensive line. You didn't have all the ones running on the offensive line together or anything like that. You broke up all your offensive linemen. So, the defense won up front during the spring game, but we're like, just everybody breathe and, long way to go to Old Dominion.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think these young guys are really developing well. Lonnie Teasley's doing a great job. Greg Atkins doing a great job bringing these young guys along. They're starting to look the part, right? Josiah Thompson put on a bunch of weight, and that's been exciting. So it's just, a matter of getting these guys reps, making sure they're healthy. They're big humans, right? So, they can be a little fragile at times when you're that big. You got a lot to room to get hurt and stuff. So you want to be, I guess, fragile with these guys. You don't want to overwork them, but at the same time, you really need them to come around and develop. And so far, so good. Again, I think the biggest thing is that these are starting to look the part, starting to mesh all together. That's another thing on the offensive line you need is camaraderie, and these guys all like each other. It's good. The vibes are good, which is it's a good thing when the camaraderie is starting to come together with such a young on the offensive line.
Intern Joe, Gamecock Central. Appreciate you, man, hanging out and, just slumming with me. I appreciate it, man. Tyler will be back next week, so you'll get back with Tyler. And I'll be sleeping.
Man, Terry, I'll miss you, man. It was so much fun. Like I said at the top of the show, chopping it up with such a legend in the local media. It was nice having you for a change. It was good.
All right, man. Appreciate you. We'll bug you again sometime. We'll just text you randomly at 3 o'clock in the morning or something.
Terry, I can't wait. I'll be waiting for it.
See you, man. Intern Joe, Gamecock Central.
Terry.
Thanks for hopping in. We'll come back, get a little bit more Demetrius Knight. We've been using a little here and there from his Garnet Trust interview, or Garnet Trust hour. Really, he just hung out with Elijah and Wes and Chris and just kind of yipped it up about a ton of different things. We'll go back. Demetrius Knight, his thoughts on playing at Williams-Brice for the first time coming up when it gets started for real. That's coming up. And I'm going to try to get, switching gears over to the NBA, Charles Barkley said something the night before that was phenomenal. I love Barkley. And one of the reasons I love Barkley, we're going to play you a cut coming up here shortly of Charles and what he says about the folks who cover the NBA. It's gold. So we got those two things coming up. It is the Extra Point. Terry Ford hanging in for Tyler up until 11. Then we'll have Wes in here, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. All that on the game. Extra point. Terry Ford, Ed Bird, Tyler Head will be back on Monday, taking a few days off. Wes Mitchell will be here, rolling Gamecock Central Takeover Hour with us about 10 minutes here on the game in Columbia, Florence, and Myrtle Beach. All right, so Demetrius Knight, we've been kind of giving you a few little pops from the hour he spent with Elijah, Wes, and Chris yesterday on the Garnet Trust Hour. We'll get to cut one, Ed Bird. Demetrius Knight has not yet played, obviously, a home game in the regular season at Williams-Brice. He was asked about what he has heard about the atmosphere of a home game at Willie B.
I have heard that it's an experience like no other. I can remember watching videos on YouTube, the best college football entrances, and that was one of them. And just to be a part of that this fall and this season is, man, I don't even have words, man. Just the spring game alone, with it not even being a completely full stadium, but it still being that loud and that awesome of an atmosphere, I was ready to, no offense, Coach Beamer, but I was ready to simulate to the season after that. I didn't even want to play the spring game. I wanted to get to ODU first game, where every seat will be full. And, man, I can't wait. I'm excited. I'll be anxious, but, it's going to be like coming home. And I think that'll be that realization that, man, I'm really home.
So Demetrius Knight got a little taste at the spring games. A little taste, but nothing like when it's for real. Because it's a thing, especially the night games at Williams-Brice. It's an atmosphere, man. It's one of the best in college football. And we'll have some more Demetrius Knight, obviously, through the day. Halftime show as well here on the game. All right, so Charles Barkley, a couple nights ago, this is Cut 9, Ed Bird. Charles Barkley was post-game, and Barkley had to get something off his chest. So Ernie Johnson said, basically, Chuck, you got something you want to get off your chest. This is right after we've seen the Lakers get eliminated, Phoenix get eliminated from the NBA playoffs, and then Chuck, he kind of let the NBA media, the people that cover the NBA, he let them have it. Hit it, Ed Bird.
Part of our job, we watch all the games and we watch all the talk shows. A lot of these people on television, they're cowards because they want the players to like them. They don't want to do their job, which is to tell the truth. And I just want to say this about coaching. Anybody who thinks the reason the Lakers suck is because of Darvin Ham, or the reason the Suns suck is because of Frank Vogel, you don't know what you're talking about. Frank Vogel is a hell of a coach. Darvin Ham is a hell of a coach trying to get his career started. But for all you punks, idiots, and jackasses on other networks who want to be media and who want all the players to like y'all, do your damn job. The Lakers suck, and the Suns suck because of the players. Has nothing to do with the coaches. I feel better now.
Here, I can tell. Looks like you getting that off your chest.
I did. I hate it, man. You sit there like Darvin Ham needs to get fired. Frank Vogel needs to get fired. Who put them teams together? Them trash-ass teams put together need to get fired. Them guys, they didn't just all of a sudden suck as coaches. People who put them teams together they start packing up their stuff.
Charles spitting truth. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It just is. That's why I love Barkley. I don't agree with everything Charles Barkley says, but I just love the fact that Charles Barkley will say what others won't say. And that right there is a perfect example. And by the way, I agree with almost everything Chuck said. The Phoenix Suns and the LA Lakers are out, not because they're coaches. First of all, the GMs / owners / meddlers who put these teams together. That's who needs to be fired. Because these teams are discombobulated. They make no sense. In Phoenix, you're playing Devin Booker out of position. Devin Booker is a good passer, but now you're asking to be a point guard. He's a shooting guard who's a good passer. You don't have a point guard in Phoenix. You just don't. And it's tough to win without a real point guard. But that Frank Vogel didn't come in and go, hey, I got a great idea. Screw this point guard thing. Let's let Devin Booker do it. Hey, let's trade for Bradley Beal. That's a great idea. And then we'll pay him $50 million. No, Frank Vogel didn't do that. You have a GM in Phoenix. You have a meddling owner in Phoenix. You got Isaiah Thomas, the old Detroit Piston, failed executive, doing the whispering in the ear to the owner You know, the GM wannabe. Phoenix is a mess. And a few years ago, they were playing for the NBA championship, and now they're a mess. Despite having Kevin Durant, Hall of Famer, Devin Booker, fabulous player, Bradley Beal used to be really good, but never 50 million good. But that's all you got. It's just built clunky. They can't make trades. I'm not going to bore you with the whole second apron NBA deal, but they're stuck with what they have, and that's because of bad moves by upper management / meddling ownership. That's not Frank Vogel. Darvin Ham, he gets LeBron James still playing at a high level despite dude's got gray hair all over his face and beard, and he's almost 40. And you got Anthony Davis, who, when healthy and in the mood, is a hell of a player. But then look at the rest of that jumbled mess. And then the Lakers, hey, we'll go out and get a third superstar. Yeah, it's a great idea. Good luck with all that. The teams just aren't built well. And then it does come back to players, too. I mean, you got to bring the right guys in who understand that they got to sacrifice to win. Everybody can't get theirs all the time. And they got to play defense, too. They just can't go take shots and then defensively go, I got to go get a beer. I'll be back. Chemistry matters. Culture matters. All these things matter in a sport where the players' butts are kissed all the time, and they're the biggest divas in professional sports in this country. Charles is right. The coaches are the least of the problem in Phoenix and L.A. I love Chuck. Man. All right. Wes is here. Didn't bring food. That's okay. Wes is here. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. We're going to roll that next right here on the game in Columbia, Florence, and Myrtle Beach.